All right, hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted, where we're all about inspiring better conversations and helping people think more deeply and critically about faith, life, and leadership. We're in our second kind of segment happening right now. This is different than we normally are. We're in a different room. Everything's just a little bit different right now, which is pretty great. I'm here with Shawn and I'm here with Danny, and we are just jacked up for a fun conversation. But what this is a segment we're calling Roundtable at a Square Table. Because we have a square table, but we're talking about round table. We're having a little discussion here, more than one voice. This is our first time having not just two people, but three people. So we'll see how it goes, see how everything works. But I'm pretty excited.
I think it's a great idea. It's going to be fun, man.
I'm really excited. What do you think?
It's awesome.
Awesome. Great. See, that's good. So actually, the point of this is actually to take a little bit of time, and we'll have a few series throughout this fall and winter time. And I want to be able to just actually chat about them. Like the church has different series we talk about, and right now we're in a series called 2-Minute Warning. And it's all about Jesus' playbook for when the end feels near. And it's been kind of a fun little series that we've been into. And I just want to ask, first and foremost, like, what are you guys thinking about the series so far?
What do you got, Shawn?
I think it's awesome. I mean, I think it's something that's really interesting, I think, to anybody about the end times and talking about, everybody's opinions and then what the Bible says about it.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, man, there's so many, I used to watch the show Doomsday Preppers,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
There's so many people that, their whole life is wrapped up in preparing for this time, So it's going to be fun. I think it's been really good so far, and I'm excited to dive into it a little bit today. Yeah,
we're a few weeks in so far, so we've talked a little bit about it, but I had this picture in my head as I was thinking about it for today and how we could kind of enter into it. For me, when I think of the phrase 2-minute warning, I mean, of course, the first thing you think of is football. But beyond football, for me, the thing that I think about is the 2 minutes before I have to leave in the morning with the boys. Because I do drop off, and then my wife often does pickup.
Sure.
And so I'm sprinting out the door with these 3 children, getting them to the places they need to go. And that's the moment where I feel most frantic, where I'm running around trying to get everything set. You do this, you make sure you're all good. Little child that can't speak yet, come on, buddy, get it together. All this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious for you guys, what is the moment that you guys feel 2-minute warning-ish, the most frantic in your normal everyday life?
Yeah, that's funny you asked that, just because when you were explaining that, I was thinking of what that is for me. And obviously for me, it's Wednesday nights.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right before students come, right before leaders come. I am not someone that likes to be, I was talking with Kathy about this yesterday. I'm not someone that likes to be prepared and organized beforehand, super in advance, because I feel more anxious if an event's about to happen and I have nothing to do. I would rather just be running around frantically, finishing all the final details. So that's my 2-minute warning.
So 2 minutes before student life, if you're not running, fixing something, something's wrong.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. If I'm overly prepared, then I'm more anxious if I am just running around. So
that's fair. I totally get that. That's legit. What about you, Shawn?
For me, it's 2 minutes before we go on for worship.
Okay.
I had this tendency to just get really excited right before.
Yeah.
And I noticed last week it was a perfect example. I was super excited, and then when I was oh, I'm so pumped we were doing the song Child of Love.
Yeah.
And I come out the very first note just cracked terribly. I was totally threw that note over the top of the wall, and it reminded me of Brett Favre when he used to come out and he would be so excited in that first played, throw it 10 feet over everybody's head.
Absolutely.
That's exactly how I feel sometimes. So I really do have to pray about it. Okay, calm me down, Lord.
That's so great. Yeah. It's hilarious. I mean, it's such a true statement. We get so excited. When it's just before something happens, we get all nervous. I'm actually the opposite of you guys. 2 minutes before I come up to speak, that's the most calm time I have, because I have to. I have to be okay, I got nothing, so whatever you got, God, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come up. So that's my one moment of clarity just before I walk up on stage.
Yeah.
And I'm actually halfway calm typically. Yep. It might just be the nerves.
Yeah, I think, speaking for me, I think I'm probably similar in that way. But, when it comes to, energetic things.
Yeah, that makes sense, totally.
Getting fired up for students to come play and have fun. Totally. It's you got to get that energy into them.
That's true. That's true. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So the part of this that, as we talk about it with a sermon series, is this idea that that at some point Jesus returns and there's a shift. There's an end to time and a shift in time to eternity with God. Like there's this reality as a Christian that you believe at some point God will come back and he will, in Jesus, he will come back and change things for how they should be. And so there's this wild amount of information that we could go into. Like we could go deeply into it. But first I want to ask, as a culture, we get real obsessed with this stuff, like really, really into it. Why do you guys think that is? Why do you think that this like just infatuates people?
The end times?
Yeah.
I think it's because we have this tendency to think we're going to live forever.
Oh, okay.
And we all think that we're going to see the end times. And, when you think about it, we're all going to see the end times in a very short time, right? Because we only are going to live so much longer. Like, I maybe have 30, 40 years, So, but I think we have this tendency to think that we always think we're going to live like forever,
Yeah.
And so maybe it's really, we're thinking it's something that's going to happen, and it could be something that's going to happen to us. But I think maybe that's just, and also just the mystery in all of it, right? How is it all going to happen? And,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think like we were just talking about like you get fired up like right before, like there's a lot of energy, and I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because of that. Like you don't know when that 2-minute warning is going to start.
Right.
So it's like, for some people, that's all they think about, and then they get fired up and they want to do everything that they possibly can. Like it's like almost maybe like fear-based. Like they want to do everything they can to be prepared for whatever they think is going to happen, and so it like ramps up their energy level towards it.
Yeah, that's super interesting because as I think about that, I actually think of like the doomsday group of people, right? And sometimes it's a motivational factor. If it seems like, hey, I would love for my life to, like, I'd love to see it. Some people would be in that camp, right? So they get excited. It's motivational. And then for what you're saying, like the motivation or the fact that it brings this excitement to you, what it causes you to do then is you live differently. Mm-hmm. And that does different things to different people. And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about for a moment. Like for some people, like they want to like, okay, maybe the end's coming. Everything seems crazy and messed up in our world, so we're going to go off and hide. Do you feel like that ever happens? Or like we're going to get around groups of people that are just like us, believe just like us, and then we're going to go find our little corner of the world so that we can feel safe and like we're okay. What do you think about that?
I'm a little distracted because you said something that I think is so interesting, and that like people, isn't it interesting like how your beliefs, like the things that you believe, change the way you live?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And obviously, right?
Right. But people don't think about that, right? Like if you think the end time is coming, and then it's going to change the way you live, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's why this series is so important. I don't know if that was just like, man.
Well,
that's powerful.
Let's dig in that for a second. So if what you believe changes the way you live, do you think most people live like what they believe changes the way they live?
No. That's the thing, right? Like that's what's so crazy to think about when that came to my mind, is because I think most people don't actually grasp that concept, like that the things that they're like choosing to believe in are changing the way that they're making decisions.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Shawn?
My wife and me are very different in that she is really well in the moment, like in a day, like looking at what we need to do for the day. And I'm one of these future planners.
Yeah.
Like I'm always thinking way ahead. So this is a really interesting topic to me. But then there's something to be said about also living in the day, right? And doing actions for today and not thinking so far ahead that you're missing the coffee in the morning, And my wife always reminds me of that. So, I mean, I love that we have that difference between us, because I think it really helps to keep me. But I think you not only have to think so far into the future, you should be thinking about how can you live right now? What can you do right now? And to me, I don't know if that really answered your question. Not really.
But enjoy the coffee. That's what I got out of that. I don't. I feel like I'm running so hard. I just like drink my coffee because I need it, and I don't. It's like, man.
Well, but I think to believe that the end could come, whether it's Jesus coming back or it's you yourself, your life ending, like that's a reality for all of us. Every day we walk out of the, and even before we walk out of the house, right? It's a possibility. And to enjoy the coffee and yet still plan. Yes. And having those things, that's a thing that this topic, I think, it brings to the forefront of your mind because it's so out of our control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so much outside of what we can do necessarily, although some people would maybe disagree with that.
Well, and try to control it. And that gets back to your question before of like the belief that they have toward the end times then dictates how they make decisions now, and then how they put themselves around similar people that think the same way, and then that ramps up the energy towards the effort for preparing for it.
Yeah, it's like you're all focused on this one thing, and you're all in this like little holy huddle of I'm going to just be really perfect in this particular way, and we have these like rules that guide how we live our lives, and we don't let outsiders in, and we don't go to where outsiders are, and we like have this little cluster of people that think just how we are. And that's super interesting because that's our natural tendency. But I don't know that it's actually what Jesus teaches us to do. No. Right?
Right.
And that's what's in this, right? Yeah. There's so much there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the exact opposite.
Yeah. So thinking about the 2-minute warning, I mean, there's a lot of theological things that we could get into here, like post-trip, pre-trip, Antichrist, how and why.
Dude. I want to fly.
If you fly or not. There's a million different questions that people have about like what eternity will be like, and like how all this will flow itself out. But in the end, what really matters is how we live, right? How we live right now, how this shows us how to live right now.
Yeah.
So how should you live? Like, what have you gotten out of the sermon so far? What are the things that you're thinking about with this kind of stuff?
Well, I know for me, one of the parts of the Bible that really, I think, relates to this, and there's a song that I sing called The Red Letters by David Crowder.
Yeah.
And when I have these really complex, issues to think about, I always have to go back to the red letters. And I think in Matthew chapter 24,
whoa, good job.
It's hey, I'm
seminary.
Totally.
But Matthew chapter 24 is such a great read for what Jesus says about it, because Jesus has a way of putting things in a way that you can understand it. And Revelations, you can get into the book of Revelations. It gets pretty complicated, but I think it's pretty clear that you're not going to know the time, right? And that you need to live every day like it could be. Like, you need to always be prepared. So each day that you live, you need to be thinking about this could be the last day, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. But what does that look like?
Well, that's where I need my wife again, because I'm always thinking about 6 months ahead.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, in 6 months I'm going to be doing this, and then I'm going to be through this and that. But you need to check yourself every day and say, but what am I doing right now? And what is it that the Lord's asking me to do? So, starts with prayer.
Yeah.
And but I think that's the important aspect of it, is always coming back to what the Lord says about it, and getting guidance in that way, and then trying to take that and put that knowledge that you learned into actions, things you do, acts of kindness towards people, things every day. Just you don't have to. I don't believe like you should get your house all in order and everything, and buy a whole bunch of extra food and everything. I think what Jesus is saying: live your life with love, grace and mercy, forgiveness, patience, and do that every day.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point you brought up about like preparing, like doomsday preppers, right? So some people would say that someday the world's going to go crazy and we got to be like prepared so that everything is messed up. But a follower of Jesus thinks about that entirely differently. For them to prepare, it's not to increase the number of supplies they have. It's to increase the amount of impact you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a whole different thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so when you think about it, it's if I'm going to actually prepare for eternity and prepare for whatever comes next after this, literally I can do some things in this life that matter for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would get kind of frustrated, right? They get really upset about that because they say, well, it's grace, right? Like you're already going to heaven. Like there's nothing you can do that's going to change that. And I think that sometimes paralyzes us from actually doing things.
Yeah.
But grace, I heard this quote the other day. It's super good. I think it's the Dallas Willard quote. And it's grace is not opposed to effort. Grace is opposed to earning. So it's not opposed to you doing the things that God calls you to do. It's opposed to you feeling like, oh, by doing these things, I'm going to be good enough suddenly.
Yeah.
And so there's this weird like tension we live in as a person that follows Jesus that says, I'm going to do these things because I know they'll have an impact on eternity.
Or who's in eternity.
Or who's in eternity, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. I resonate with that strongly because, I mean, you look at the world, right? And there's all kinds of things in the Bible about like earthquakes and volcanoes and firestorms and all these crazy things. And there's some messed up stuff happening at it seems like, increasing rate, right?
Right now, yeah.
But what does that matter?
What do you mean?
Like, okay, we see these things in the Bible talking about crazy natural phenomenons happening, or not even a natural firestorm. I guess I don't know if that's natural, but anyway. But what does that matter actually for us in the way that we live our life, right? Like we talk about the things that we believe influence our decisions, but it doesn't matter what we believe about how the actual earth is gonna destruct, or like the natural phenomenon that's gonna happen, because what we actually believe is that the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis that we're trying to impact eternity is what matters when it comes to the end of the world, not what physically is going to happen to the world, right?
Yeah. Well, although I'm not sure about that. So what physically is going to happen to the world is an interesting one, because if you look at the really solid theology of end times and what the future looks like, the earth is still here.
Sure.
Earth is still part of it. And like we were commissioned by God to be reigning over the earth.
Yeah.
And that means caretakers, not necessarily abusers.
Yeah.
So like there's some interesting things there, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many pieces to this that we could get deep into if we wanted to, but
Totally. And I'm not advocating for destroying the planet
good call.
because I
It's
care
God's
deeply about
gift
it.
and
God,
creation for us.
exactly. However, what I was trying to get at is that we don't need to get wrapped up in like what does it matter if volcanoes are blowing up left and right?
Totally.
That's not the thing that we need to be preparing for. The thing that we need to be preparing for is the eternity, and if we believe that, then our decisions from that should be that we make decisions on a day-to-day basis to impact eternity as God calls us to.
Yeah, I agree.
Jesus talks about that as birth pains, right? You're going to see that. He says, don't be worried about it. You're going to see this stuff happening. That doesn't necessarily mean the end's imminent at that time, right?
Yeah.
So.
And birth pains is such a great metaphor because something good is coming.
Yeah. That's interesting that he uses that, right? Birth pains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is really good. Okay, I've got one more question for you guys, and this is the hardest one. Okay, so ready yourself.
All right.
Okay.
Let's say the end is literally like coming, and you know it. We don't, like to be clear, we don't, and we never will.
Yeah.
But the end is here, and you know it. Let's just imagine this hypothetical, and it's not 2 minutes away; it's like 2 weeks away. What do you do differently? What do you change about your life? What's the thing you do differently these 2 weeks?
I'm a super sarcastic person, and when you said that, the thing that popped into my mind is like, you go to a big city and like someone's out on the street with a megaphone and a sign.
Totally.
Repent, for the end is near.
for sure.
I don't think I would take it that far.
Okay.
But I think it would probably. I don't know. I mean, like, there's an aspect of like just like loving and being full of grace in like your every day-to-day life, but like I don't know. That's a good question. I think like it would probably cause me to want to like increase evangelism.
Yeah.
Like within probably the people that I care about most. I know that's
Selfishly,
probably,
right?
Yeah, I know that's probably
That's
not.
okay.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
What about you, Shawn?
This is gonna sound maybe cliche coming from a worship, somebody that is doing music for church, but that's what I would want to do. I'd want to have everybody. I just want to sing, get as many people as together, because there's so much healing and so much hope when you sing, and just get everybody that wants to come, and we're just singing and just kind of go around and whatever songs would come to that would kind of help us, because I think it would be a time of a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So I would think that's one of the things that I would want to help with is everyone's fear.
Yeah.
And I think there again, when you sing together, it can really calm you and it gets you close to the Lord. And obviously I'd want my family around me and all those things. I don't think I'd be too worried about much else. Like I don't think I'd be like worried about running down and getting a whole bunch of toilet paper or whatever. Or something like that.
Right.
I think definitely wouldn't be that way, but it would definitely be a time for fellowship and everybody to get together.
I can picture that. That would be really beautiful.
Just throw the doors open of the church, and anybody that wants to come in, we're just gonna sing.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's cool, because we do that every weekend.
Yeah.
We literally do that every weekend, but to do it with that kind of purpose and that kind of thoughtfulness is just a really cool picture.
That's like a picture of heaven, right?
It is. That's every Sunday.
Heavens,
Every Sunday
glory.
it's happening.
Sing your praises.
Yeah.
What would you do, Sam?
I think I was thinking a lot about this, and I really liked what you said. There's something that piqued it from what you said, actually. The thing that I think I would do, just because in our world today, people have such a difficult time disagreeing with each other. They do it so heartily and so quickly, and it causes these grudges to happen, that I think I would go to anybody that I know I disagree with and just be like, I'm just going to give them a hug.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find anybody that I disagree with on big issues, I think are big issues, and be like, I'm going to love you anyways. And I'm just going to start trying to do that and encourage people. Who cares? We disagree. I don't care. Let's love each other well. And I'm going to tell you what I believe, but we don't have to agree on everything. And I think that'd be fun.
That's interesting. I don't remember if it was, I think it was one of the sermons just recently. Mike was talking about loving your enemies.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something that's interesting, because that's even more important.
Yeah.
Than loving just the everyday people around you that are easy to love.
Anybody can love somebody who doesn't love them or who loves them already. It's easy just to pay it back, but to do it for somebody who's not going to do it for you, it's really powerful.
Yeah. And the world we live in is just wrought with disagreement.
I know.
It's full of it everywhere you turn, and that's all people focus on, right? It's man, what if we just loved.
Just love. There you go.
Yeah. It is kind of interesting, because when you think about it, your thoughts on what you worry about from day to day, sometimes I find myself worrying about stuff. I'm like, why am I worried about that?
Yeah.
But you worry about things in day-to-day life and how that would change if you knew that the end was coming for sure. And if it's radically different, then you almost have to check yourself, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because if it's radically different, all this stuff, that doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. Then that should tell you something, that maybe you're worried about the wrong things.
Yeah,
right?
Political parties.
Yeah.
Oh man. If the end was 2 weeks away, what gives? Political
Who
parties.
cares?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's really good. That's profound, Shawn.
Oh man, guys, this has been fantastic. I can't wait to do another one in a little bit. Thanks for sitting down with me. And for all of you who are tuning in and listening, thanks for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Yeah,
have a good one, everybody. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Boom. What was the time on that? Pretty good?
I don't know. Did they